Remember the green button.
The following program is rated TV MAL. It contains strong language and is intended only for mature audiences.
All right, there we go. Yeah, I don't have any music to play, and I'm not going to maximize myself. Wow, it doesn't take long to get out of. That's weird. Thought I could lean back and still be seen, but apparently not. Maybe I should dig out another light. Anyway, well, welcome to Friday or Saturday morning, wherever you are in the world. Joining me at the moment, so we're waiting on Appalachian American to get back, but we can discuss all kinds of things. The Supreme Court said, hey, you district court judges overstep your authority. All kinds. Yep. There's several good things that we got to discuss, as well as unbelievable what New York City just seems hell-bent to destroy itself, the citizens of it, at least a small percentage of them. But David, say howdy.
Howdy. G'day. Just right then, it made it sound like I ripped, but that was a motorbike outside, I swear.
Oh, I didn't hear anything. I thought you were going to say more than that. Greetings, when you say
greetings
fans
from down under aliens.
How come you don't say the other cool units anymore?
I just didn't get enough laughs out of it.
Oh, okay.
No friends, fans, air conditioners, and other cool units.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm trying to do about 6 things at once right here. Unfortunately, I got both monitors got stuff on it. You guys are over here. I got something else over here. Hopefully, I can at least pretend to be a host.
I got Kane in full glory on my big screen with his red nose and his death stare. And Chuck Schumer bent over. I mean, what a pose. Anyway.
Yeah.
If you don't know what's happened, just a short time ago, the Democrats tried to hijack the floor to crush presidential authority, and it didn't even last 5 minutes.
I tell you what.
It was an insurrection, comrades.
That's right. It was an insurrection attempt. I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this because in some ways, the Democrat Party that people want to pretend never existed, right? We had a belief.
The promise of look, they're voting for the promise of Andrew Jackson. Are they not?
Which promise?
That's it. They don't even know what the promises are.
Promises of Andrew Jackson. Yeah. Is this 40 acres and a mule? Is that what?
Oh no, that was the promise of Lincoln for reparations.
Not Lincoln, maybe Johnson. But because Lincoln didn't last.
Lincoln did promise reparations.
Yeah.
But Andrew Jackson, the promise of freedom and democracy for all.
No. Because he did fight against the National Bank.
Yes, he did. But the Democrats later voted for it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course. That's what I'm saying. And this is something I've brought up multiple times.
But you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying it never existed. I'm just saying deep down at their core, Andrew Jackson is front and center. Because remember, behind the scenes, he was a raging white supremacist.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's not odd in those days. And the thing about it that, and I've said this before, ouch, on my show and this show.
Yeah.
I was in when I was in, I guess it would have been 8th or 9th grade, going through U.S. history, and I'm watching every major event to either give freedom a little wider, whether it's increasing the range of citizenship or the like, or the opportunity to take or not take freedom. The Democrat Party was always on the wrong side, right? They always were, even in the Civil Rights Act, right? Even as recent as that. But
they were talking up here,
yeah,
and they landed down here.
They created the Federal Reserve. They created the income tax. They created the Great Society. The New Deal, which was pretty much a raw deal.
They protested against British taxes and gun control. They said they were against gun control. When they took over, they rounded up all the guns, federalized all the militias, and immediately imposed the 3% tax that they opposed.
Yeah, but and you got to remember too, the Democratic Republicans of Jefferson are not even close to the same party now, and that is kind of your point too. The modern Democrat Party really branches off from that under Andrew Jackson, and you get a split, and eventually the Republicans reconstitute as the actual Republican Party, but. Yeah, but what I'm saying is that they voted for the income. They created the income tax. They created the Federal Reserve.
Everything they opposed.
They created everything, or they tried to. They voted against things that would help them. Like I said, there's multiple civil rights acts. Actually, some in the 19th century they voted against all of them. They, Clinton gave us the largest tax increase in American history on the middle class. And then spent, the reason people are, but when Bush took over, he had a surplus. Yeah, because of the Republicans in Congress. And, Newt Gingrich was leading that charge till they threw him under the bus. And it's like they kept saying, "Oh, the Democrat Party's for the working man," and all this. I'm like, no, they aren't, and they're for controlling the narrative.
No,
and
when they say, about silent English, when they say "we're for the working man." The silent part is we're for enslaving the working man.
Yeah, well, for controlling the working man, yeah.
Yeah, because the key Democrat operative is always about control. Well, I want to control your diet.
Well,
I want to control
and I've also said
sex in, when you have sex.
Yeah, right. You can do what you want to do as long as you say you can do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Cradle the grave. It's moral as long as we have approval and a vote in it.
Right. We approve of what you're doing. Well, then you can do it. And the other things that I've brought up too is in every major conflict of the 20th century. Heck, you can go back into the 19th century. And if you really want to,
almost every
split hairs,
was a Democrat majority vote.
Democrat president, Democrat Congress. Right.
Usually,
Democrats they split off. They start the Civil War. The Spanish-American War was under Democrat president, and this was Remember the Maine and all that other fakery. They faked that. World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, all of them were.
World War II was to rob Germany of its technological supremacy over America.
Well, they created Hitler. He got out of control, and he had to be dealt with. But that's also
but that's it. He was the first Saddam, people.
Yeah. Well, it's the problem reaction solution all over again, right? We've talked about this in Iran. Well, what do? In Israel creates Hamas because the PLO implodes and there's actual peace, and oh my God, we can't have that. So Obama was funding these guys. Hillary was funding in through the State Department, which is why those guys died at the embassy.
Now, we go back to Jefferson and the no foreign conflict policy of the United States, right?
The Monroe Doctrine. It was the Monroe Doctrine. We're going to be in our hemisphere, in Europe. You do your thing over there, and don't come over here.
I'm talking about Jefferson when he was formulating this doctrine. and others. Jefferson was the ambassador to France. I think it was Napoleon III, wasn't it? When Jefferson declared they'll go to end slavery. And they all laughed at him. And everybody laughed at him. The French, the British, everybody. They all laughed at him. I think he was ambassador in France at the time. He had lofty ideals.
Yeah, so 1785 to 1789.
Yeah.
Was the escalation of tension? Okay, the revolution firsthand.
Yes.
Minister to France. Who was Napoleon III? Sounds too late.
Now, the Americans originally were pro the revolution, but after the revolution, they were against it. But during this, I read somewhere, and I forget who it was. I think it was Heinrich van Loon.
Yeah, Louis XVI was still king.
Yeah.
Yeah, Louis XVII. Louis XVII, the little kid.
Yeah. America apparently was pro-revolution, right? And Jefferson was there on secret business in Washington. And he was speaking with the king. Now, he went from being pro-revolution to against the revolution when he knew the truth about Robespierre, okay, and the revolution. But he thought that all revolutions were noble, right? This was the noble peasant mentality.
Yeah. Yep.
But he was told time and time again by the British that and the Russians and the I forget who it was, but I think it was probably Germany or Austria, that he was being naive. That revolutions, yours may work for now, but all revolutions end worse than they start. Right? You always have worse after.
Right.
And he was being naive. But I think later when he became president, that was haunting over him.
Yeah.
Which is why he created the Marines. Because he didn't want America to be kicked around by the big countries. And that's what he was starting to see. Right? Americans being kidnapped. Americans being bullied. Foreign trade being controlled by outside forces. He actually started to realize that, oh my God, the French were right. The French, Louis was right all along, Yeah.
Well, I take that back. So, Louis the
I think it was right towards the end of Louis's reign.
Yeah, well, it was Louis. It was their son. So it was Louis the 12th. Yeah. I got to do 17th. I got to look at my Roman numerals. So Louis the 16th and Marie Antoinette were killed. He ascends the throne. Well, he was regent, but he wasn't in charge. Napoleon Bonaparte was in charge.
Yes.
And so 1785.
Yeah.
Was that what I said? 17. What was my search?
17.
Yeah, 17.
When he finished
1785 to 1789 is when Jefferson was ambassador to France.
Yeah.
And Napoleon.
And a lot of French revolutionaries fled to America after Napoleon.
So 1792, we had. So I guess he was. So he was on the throne until 1792 when the French Revolution happened, but he was already gone by then.
Yeah. I think they were friends for about a year. They knew each other.
Yeah.
It was a small circle.
Correct. And so, and my take on some of the attitude of the early Americans was the French helped the Americans during the Revolution because the French were enemies with the British.
Yes.
But when France wanted to go to war with somebody, and we were like, they're not our problem.
Yeah.
Go do you, boo. And I think the French thought that was kind of a cop-out, but the whole point to what you were bringing up is they wanted to conquer, if you will, or exploit or whatever the continent, right? They didn't want to have foreign entanglements. Yes. And during the early...
didn't want to be bullied around.
And during the early years...
Other states,
and they didn't want to bully others around either. And so but twice in the early, first 50 years, we'll say, they did have to finally answer back, right? You have Jefferson and the Berber Pirates, creation of the U.S. Marine Corps, and you
actually
have
before that was the invasion of Canada.
Yeah,
America's first war.
Weren't the French Canadians doing something? Weren't they poking across the line?
Yeah, they were raiding across the border.
Yeah. And
but
then
the British stopped us.
Right, but then the British started taking Americans captive, and eventually led to the War of 1812.
1812, yes.
Yeah.
So that was because that was a different problem. America went too far, and instead of capturing pirates, started using them to raid British ships to pay their debts. And the American government may not have an official hand in it, but there were definitely some corrupt people involved.
Yeah. Well, I think the privateering went both ways. The British were doing that against the Spanish before.
No, but I'm just saying the Americans. Yeah. The Americans said, "Oh, look, we'll go under a British flag, grab a Spanish ship, but we'll dock in Massachusetts instead."
Right. Yeah.
Instead of Barbados.
Right.
Oops, navigation error, right?
Yeah, my GPS was off.
Yeah. It was Russian GPS, comrade.
Yeah. Well, look, I didn't download the latest maps, so I didn't know that the currents had changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and then for a long time, America held to that until really pushed. Well,
Wilson, was it Wilson or Teddy Roosevelt? No, Teddy Roosevelt was the first interventionist, wasn't he?
Well, depends on where you want to start drawing that line, because you have in the late 19th century with the creation of the Great White Fleet and the World Tour, and you have, it's Roosevelt who fights he fights in Cuba, but who was it in the Philippines? They were fighting somebody in the Philippines in that late 19th century.
Yeah, that's it. Too. Yeah, that was that was actually the same conflict going on today. That was the Muslims in Menendo.
Yeah. So it depends if you want to consider that same hemisphere or not. But yeah, by the time you get to...
Actually, I think the intervention has really started with was it before or after the acquisition of Hawaii? Was it Hawaii then Philippines or Philippines then Hawaii?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Neither
but that is when
but
the late 19th century is when the empire building nonsense
began
started.
In earnest. There was probably early attempts that we don't really stand out as empire building, but definitely the war in Cuba, the war against Spain, the war in the Philippines, which was an extension of the war in Spain.
Yeah.
But it started as a different excuse that the American ships were being attacked by local natives under the direction of Spain, even though they weren't. They were separatists. But,
right.
Tomatoes, potatoes.
Right. Well, and so correct. A lot of it before then was either purchasing of land. There were conflicts with.
There were purchases, minor conquests internally.
Right.
You had the Indian Wars. You had the war in Mexico that was started by Mexico and France.
Yeah. Well, yes, and so there you had. We had previous runs in with Spanish, but we didn't. If I remember correctly, they didn't keep it.
They were separatists then. They were fighting for Mexico, not for Spain.
Right.
Under French officers.
And so you could say the empire building started earlier, but it was really expansionist on the continent. It wasn't, we're going to go out and do things a bit more aggressively. Yeah.
We'll take the empty land.
Right. Well, see, and that a lot of it was a clash of cultures more than anything, right? The French and the Spanish laid claims to, especially the French, right? It became the Louisiana Purchase and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Somewhere, because the concept of throne ownership or crown ownership of the country was very foreign to the American Indians, Native American, what do you want to call them? The tribes that were here, they had their lands. They had that concept, but what they didn't have was a king, a chief over all the chiefs, and that one nation. I mean, because you look at any.
They did try to build one.
Right.
I'm not denying they tried to build one.
The Mississippian culture. Yeah.
They had the Six Nations, but that
You
wasn't
had
successful.
you had there was something else too that was there was some other tribunal
you think
thing
of the
too.
Iroquois Council?
Yeah.
That also, but that
I thought the
argument
Sioux
was
also
broken
tried
up
to
by
do.
smallpox.
Yeah.
Killed a lot of their leaders.
And what's interesting too, that you think that quite often, at least I did, I thought, oh, the Indian tribes were they were set when we arrived. Well, they were moving around. They were getting pushed out of Canada. They were fighting each other up until the white man showed up, So but if you look at any European country, really, or any of these, so France or Germany, well, Germany didn't exist really until after World War One, but you had people speaking the same language, but they weren't a unified country. So even in Europe, depending on how you want to divide that, right? If you want to say, well, because we get the Norman invasion of England in 1066, he's not the king of France, right? It's not the French invasion, it's the Norman invasion, right? Louis is king in the northern part of the country. There's not a unified France for a long time. So it's not surprising that we don't have this concept of that the natives in America, the American continent, didn't have that concept. Perhaps you could say the Aztecs and the Toltecs kind of had that concept, and the Maya, but they were conquering people and enslaving others, So it's how the Spanish were able to. Was the Maya or Aztecs? I always forget who they fought.
The Maya were in later, but the first encounter they had were the three tribes. They beat them. I forget their names. We used to learn this in history, but
it's been too long.
They beat the three tribes. The three tribes submitted to the Spanish and then told them they were sent by the Aztecs. And they hated the Aztecs, but the Aztecs were the grand slavers. And the Spanish, on the promise of that they promised, now this is the thing, the three tribes promised them the Aztec gold, the Aztec women, and the Aztec land if they freed them. So by rights, they were given South America, not conquered. They were given.
Right.
In return for liberating. Cortez, technically, according to a minority of course, and there's always been a minority of historians have always viewed Cortez as a liberator.
Right.
That the three tribes may not have had the right to make that promise, but they made that promise and they kept that promise because they united the tribes, handed over. I mean, some sailors had as many as 1,000 women. The survivors I'm talking about, the survivors of the Cortez Wars, got to have as many as 1,000 women because they were seen as liberators at the time.
Yeah. Well, and
to take over and become a majority because the women were just endlessly giving themselves to their liberators.
Yeah, well, and think of when they were in several of these areas, where it was the Aztecs and others that were capturing other tribes that spoke other languages. They were probably all related in some fashion, but maybe they split that. Who knows, right?
I think a lot of the tribes were dialects. That's how they were able to capture so easily and exploit them.
So you have a few hundred soldiers, but you've got 8,000 people who are being oppressed, and this happens over and over again.
Within a year turned into 1 million.
Yeah, and so they help them conquer, and this is why they did so well.
That's how they were able to take city after city, because they were simply a mass that just wandered through, killing everything that was in Aztec feathers. If you had that, if you had those red eagle feathers, you were done. You were dead. Right? You had nowhere to run. It reached critical mass. It was a revolution. The Spanish rarely got the fight because they just had a mass.
Right. So that was so those concepts. There was a Mississippian culture, I think, in the Americas and others, but those unifying concepts weren't fully there, and so I would say that the empire-ish stuff started late 19th century, but it definitely gets kicked in high gear under Roosevelt and others in the 20th century.
Yeah,
you got a haircut.
Was known as the grandfather of American imperialism. at the time. He was called the grandfather of American imperialism by everybody but, a few.
Hey, so what's going on? What's everybody up to?
I don't even remember what topic we're talking about. We've been on 17.
We're talking about how Democrats were derailed already.
Well, yeah, that's right. How they were the start of every major conflict, right, in the 20th century. Because now Republicans got us into some minor conflicts, and they got us out. Well, Vietnam was a bit of a disaster.
They weren't successful at first with the Indian Wars, but it took time. It took 14 years, I believe.
But I'm into 20th century, right? We had Grenada and other little skirmishes until we get to, I guess, the Gulf War I. But that was answering an invasion that we told Saddam, go ahead, take Kuwait, and then
but wasn't that Brennan? Oh, I'm not sure.
I forget.
He was in Saudi Arabia, so it could have been Brennan.
But we gave him the green light and then said, but again, it's the same formula every time. The globalists, whatever label you want to put on these people, they create some boogeyman. They let the boogeyman loose. And when people are like, oh my God, we got to do something. They said, we'll go do this, but we have to have this freedom and this freedom. Right. So we have the World Trade Center comes down and, we don't need free speech. We can have surveillance state 24/7. We don't mind.
Yeah.
And we still haven't, that was supposed to be temporary.
Yeah.
5 years later, it's still around.
Yeah. Let's see. Biden, out of the blue, creates the Patriot Act. No worries that his supporters and backers just happen to be all security companies, okay? One of which is the son, and one of which of those security companies is the founder's son is the one who killed the CEO in New York.
Wait, who killed what?
Remember Luigi? Remember Luigi? His father's a CEO of a security company that's aligned with Biden, and they were one of those who pushed for the Security Act, which became the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
Now, the Patriot Act was created by Biden initially, and he was using Oklahoma City to launch it.
It originally came up in the 90s, and people rejected it.
But what happens? Bill Gates says, what happens when Bill Gates doesn't get his way? He says, we find a way.
We'll blow something up and get you to beg us to.
Yep.
Now, remember, America didn't want to be in World War I. Suddenly a passenger ship sinks. 6 months later, boom, you're in World War I.
Yep. And that was Republicans who were voting against that. Republicans used to be isolationists. That's what I'm saying. Problem, reaction, solution, right? They found a formula that at least goes back to the sinking of the Maine.
Yes.
That was in Havana Harbor.
And what was it recently? A company floated the Maine and had to drop it back down because it showed that the explosion was not from without, but within.
1898.
One of its boilers had exploded in harbor.
Yeah. No, it was an accident. Well,
it was an
maybe.
Accident, yeah.
It was either an accident or sabotage, but it was not what it was portrayed to be.
But the naval inquiry was thrown out because basically it wasn't the accident that they said it was. It was not a torpedo or a mine or dynamite in the hull.
No, but it got us in the Spanish-American War, David. There's always a war. It's like some of the meme. That's sort of a meme, but I've seen these videos of Netanyahu, right? 25, 30 years ago. If we just do this, global terror, I guarantee global terrorism will end. And 3 years later, well, if we just invade here, the global terrorism will end. Well, if you just give us the bomb, global terrorism will end. Well, if we just do, and it's like over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, but look, if it was just Netanyahu with that simple mind mentality, it wouldn't be a problem. The problem is so many people have a smooth brain where you say, if this happens, this will happen. And because most people are idiots and cannot say, wait a minute, is that right or wrong? Can I have the data, please? Can I work it out for myself? No, They just go, the party's always right, comrades. Yes, we'll go all the way with that.
Well, it's the simple solution to a complex problem, right? And there's no guarantee that if you do this, this is going to happen. It might, but it's you don't have any control. That's the whole thing is you can do this. You have control over whether you do this. You have no control over how this party is going to react. Yeah.
That's why they create enough chaos so they get control, because they want the Chinese system where even robberies are planned by the state to keep X amount of police in employ. They release a robber. He's poor. He's broke. He commits a crime. They know, and they just round him up again and take him to jail, just to keep the entire system running.
And the word goes out, okay, everybody, nothing for the next 3 months. We need it quiet to make it look like we're doing something.
Yeah.
So, well, hey, Appalachians, that you're back. I'm going to go lock up my chickens.
Okay. All right. Yeah, cool.
We touched on the Supreme Court stuff. We didn't really discuss it. I put a couple other topics I threw out there. We
threw out the topics about Democrats tried another insurrection, trying to crush presidential authority. It didn't go anywhere. They were quickly voted down. Judicial showdown. We said there was trouble in the Supreme Court, but we didn't go into detail.
No.
Jeff Bezos has made a splash. His wife is calling herself Mrs. Bezos. And, of course, boom, feminist heads are blowing.
Yeah.
What a shock, right?
It was shocking.
Supreme Court.
I'll be right back.
Bye, man.
Big win for the Supreme Court. Big win for Trump. The Supreme Court has upheld.
Big win for religious freedoms, to be honest with you.
Yes. But also parents have the right, whether it's religious or social, and block LGBT plus or any other book that is rated adult from their kids. Okay, these are adult. These are not books rated banned because they are LGBTQ plus. They happen to be LGBTQ plus books, but they have sex in them, and therefore the parents are saying no. If Dave can't put sex in his books and market it to kids, why can LGBT groups do it? No, you can't have it both ways. You're either equal or you're not.
Yeah.
So
well, all they want to do is they want to over sexualize children,
hypersexualize children, desexualize adults, but also break Christianity from schools.
Yep.
But the thing is, the biggest thing they're not saying is California's biggest Muslim group was backing the Supreme Court challenge by the Christian group. They funded it. Big Muslim group in California. And Gavin Newsom is fuming because they used to back him. And if they don't back him, he's worried that he won't win the next election. Well, you import votes, and then you suddenly say, yeah, but we're also going to side with the gays. And the Muslims are going to go, really?
Yeah. Rwanda's foreign minister gives huge praise to Trump after brokered impossible peace deal. Conflict has been going on for 30 years. There's been many attempts at mediation, but none of them succeeded. And this happened under Trump's leadership.
Because Trump went along and says, I'm daddy. Who's your
daddy?
That
was hilarious. What's the deal? Why are they calling him daddy? I mean, like I saw something about at the, was it G7?
He went to Europe, right? And they're all standing united saying, we're all with Ukraine, comrades. They all go into the room. They come out 3 hours later, and Mark Rutte says, we've agreed to Daddy's proposal of raising NATO spending to 5% within 10 years.
Nice. And
everybody freaked out. So Trump went in the room and said, who's your daddy? And they all went, Daddy.
You are daddy.
You are daddy.
Daddy. That's funny.
The reporter freaked out, and Trump just smiled and says, they like me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been he's living rent free in people's heads. So it's just kind of there.
Yeah. But of course, you know what he did, right? He didn't literally bang their heads together. He says, you know what happens when a few pixels are missing from your sky? And he says, no. And he says, you get a dose of 30,000 pounds of vitamin B2. Well, isn't it right? Doesn't the B2 flying over look like some missing pixels?
Somebody, what was it? The Danger Dorito or something?
Yeah.
Somebody called it that. I thought it was kind of funny.
Because they're referring to an obscure Pixar movie that was a remake of Chicken Little.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
It was an excellent pop culture reference had that movie been a success. But yeah, you're missing a few pixels and suddenly you got 30,000 pounds of vitamin B2. Remember the violent protests that have been suspects are starting to appear in court. Finally, we're getting some arrests and some court cases.
Nice. Well, that's good. It's about time people start going to jail for this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, we got cases, so that's good. Now, there's a thing called... Do you remember the thing about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? About a secret group?
Yeah.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? Okay. Snow White was a code name for a convicted sex trafficker. And according to Starley, a former Barclays CEO and longtime executive, JP Morgan, he lost his appeal in the UK court. He's been banned from banking because he has ties to a disgraced financier and sex trafficker. It's believed. Yeah, so finally we have some action on the Epstein files. It's believed that...
About time.
It's believed that Jeffrey Epstein was Snow White and that the Seven Dwarfs, he might be one of them, the bankers who behind Epstein. If this is true, we finally have a Epstein client, and
oh my gosh, finally.
We finally have something.
No help.
Email chain.
No help to Pam Bondi.
No, this was in London because this is where Stanley was living. He was originally from Boston, and he was engaged to or in a sexual relationship with an Epstein employee. There was a tribunal in London looking into global finance and sex trafficking. And no, was not Pam Bondi. This is Dan Pongino.
Well, I know. I'm just saying because, like, she's
done nothing.
Yeah, she's done nothing, and it's really
At least
annoying.
We have one Trump appointee who done something. So he said there was something coming. Did he not?
Did he? I don't remember.
Yeah. Dan Bongino said there was something coming. We've got more to come. It'll come out soon. Stanley didn't write the email, but he approved the draft. The court, he appealed against his sentence, but the court cut his fine, but he's still facing lifetime banking ban. He's convicted. He's a convicted sex offender. Yeah, so we may not get heads rolling en masse, but a head has rolled. And it's the first, I think, of many to come. Hopefully it is. Hope he's not the only one. I hope it does come out that Epstein was Snow White and that he was one of the Seven Dwarfs and that the rest of them start getting arrested and the entire network is exposed. But cutting the head off the snake is, of course, glorious. But if these are retired people, that means there's active, But, of course, evil is the fight that we're always going to fight, right?
Yeah.
Just because we defeat one guy doesn't mean 10 more will take his place or fight to take his place. Let's see. Pushback in LA... Worst of the worst have been, despite the riots, worst of the worst have been arrested. Homeland Security has released photos and mugshots of more than 20 illegal migrants that apprehended in the latest raids. Many are now saying, well, where's the tens of thousands, But these are sex offenders, and yet people are out there rioting to protect them from deportation, claiming that Mexicans made LA. No, you're invaders, man. You're not Mexican. But it's not Mexico, okay? You invaded, took over from Spain. You had it for a little bit, and then you voted to leave Mexico because they were taxing you too much, okay? And taxes now in California are still not as bad as Mexico.
Everything's worse in California, and mainstream media will never report any of it. Oh, I forgot to bring up the chats. Now the chats are turned on. Hey, Mom. So,
What I says, Mom. Republicans amendment could earn birthright citizen once and for all. The Supreme Court has allowed them to go ahead. The challenge to Birthright Citizenship Act, which is not to enshrine but to remove birthright citizenship from people who cross the border, have a baby and leave, that baby is no longer going to be considered American once Trump signs the bill.
Dang.
Canada, Trump's pulled the plug on trade talks with Canada after they failed to respond. So Canadian tariffs are still in place.
I was wondering about that. I've seen something recently, just a few minutes ago, that Trump's going to slap on a new tariff on Canada because they're doing something.
They refuse to slash theirs.
Yeah, they're adding a digital tariff.
Yeah, they're basically they're basically doubling down on stupid.
Yeah,
ask China how it went, Canada, and they're much bigger than you.
Large takedown of human trafficking ring recently. 60 children rescued.
Yeah,
haven't heard nothing about that.
Remember, Europe is bigger than you, Canada. And what did they say to Trump? Hello, Daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Canada always thinks they're tough until it comes time to pay the bills, right? And they're like, oh, gee, I forgot my purse. So Tim Kaine attempted to take away Trump's powers. That lasted 5 seconds. Insurrection. Arrest him for insurrection. Pete Hegseth has removed a gay activist's name from the Navy oil tanker and renamed it after a Medal of Honor recipient.
I did see that this morning.
I sort of think that's the best. Just because Milk was they made a movie about this guy. He was the first openly gay politician and shot and killed in San Francisco. Yeah, by a Democrat, by the way. Anyway, that was Barack Obama. It's a naval ship, okay? Not a political, okay? A Medal of Honor winner from the Navy. Man, he should be an aircraft carrier. There's no higher honor, right? You get the Medal of Honor. What's next? I mean, shit, he should be an aircraft carrier. But okay, that's for presidents. I get that.
Yeah.
But still, the Democrats are fuming. What a shock, right? When aren't they fuming? Can I find a story where they aren't losing their minds? I mean, seriously, folks. Oh. Apparently, China is propping up the Iranian government and that these shipments were pallets of cash.
Oh, really?
Speculation.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. That it wasn't arms, that it was actually cash. That's probably why there were only 3 flights.
Yeah.
Experts have revised their bunker buster assessment. After detailed scans of the mountains, they actually seen heat, which indicates a uranium fire. There is a fire on the mountain, according to satellite imagery. A big one at that. But the satellite photo, when you do infrared, it shows as green, not as red, which is why people were confused when they saw the release. You know those green spots on the map that you saw on the release? That's actually the infrared overlay of heat. That's not cold spots. That's extreme heat. That's a uranium. It's called a uranium fire. Basically, the uranium that was enriched is deoxidized. So now it's oxidizing at a rapid rate and enough to melt steel around it.
Oh, wow.
I don't think there's anybody alive down there, okay? Uranium fires tend to consume everything. The melting point of a human is way much lower than the melting point of uranium. And if uranium's on fire, you ain't melting. You're roasting. Yeah, so the entire top of the mountain has basically been cooked, okay? And there's no external signs of heat. There's heat blasts in the showing on the surface, and depressions have formed nearby, indicating that tunnels have collapsed.
Yeah. So Elon Musk came out and said that people with Neuralink brain chips will eventually be able to have full body control of a Tesla Optimus robot. You can basically inhabit an Optimus robot, not just the hand, but the whole thing. You can mentally remote.
We made a movie about this, Elon.
Yeah.
Did not go well, okay?
No.
People turned into zombies and sat in the couch all day.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird.
But I know why he's doing it, okay? Because he wants to send Tesla robots into space to do all the high precision work. Okay.
Gotcha.
And he also wants that sweet, sweet, sweet military money.
Search for Operation Dragonfly for more into the children's rescue. Okay.
Okay, go for that.
Let's see.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi is upset that he had removed the political activist from San Francisco. But she didn't mention that he was murdered by Democrats. Nancy in us. Oh my God, a left-wing group wants to sue Trump because he broke America's fundamental promise. Well, we were talking about that. You broke that over 100 years ago, okay?
Hey, what do you think about all these unknown objects going across radar at intense
Another psyop
speeds?
test.
You think so?
They're testing drones again.
Gotcha.
These are highly. I mean, Trump would have to go through a lot of hoops to undo a lot of acts to get rid of these surveillance drones, but that's what they're doing. And on the plus side, he thinks these drones are probably going to be, probably in the weight of all the stuff that he's dealing with. He's probably used these drones to round up people from the protests. So he's probably, plus they probably will be using them as in the near future in the missile shield system. And definitely Europe wants this missile shield system. That's why they're calling him Daddy, because he's going to give them what they've always wanted. We'll protect you from the big bad Ruskies. They're there. They're there. My little autistic buddy.
Lord.
It's a medical term. Look it up.
Yep, it sure is. I saw something earlier today, but now I'm having a hard time finding it. Alligator Alcatraz.
Oh, Alligator Alcatraz. Man, I forgot about that.
That is looking insane.
Yes. A massive detention center in the middle of the Everglades. Why? Because if you escape, that you can see for miles, There's nothing but alligators.
Yep.
And the guards ain't going to come after you because nobody's ever made it to the other side.
Yep. Yep. Let's see. Alligators for 50 to 60 miles. Governor DeSantis, by Tuesday, we will have intake for criminal aliens. If criminal aliens were to escape, there's nowhere to go. Swamping alligators for 50 to 60 miles.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
You don't have to worry about the snipers. You have to worry about being large.
So you essentially are safer just staying there.
You are definitely, decisively happy in your cell.
See you later, alligator.
Exactly.
After a while, crocodile.
Washington Post, breaking news. Washington Post editor faces uncertain future as he's been charged officially for CP.
Who is this?
A Washington Post editor has been caught by the FBI with a
unnamed editor
drive full of Thomas Pham Legros. It's not unnamed. He's been unmasked. Thomas Pham Legros, 48, was arrested after taking into custody a search of his district home in Columbia. It's his first appearance is in the U.S. District Court. He's been arrested for and placed on leave for possessing cheese pizza on his work laptop. He works at the Washington Post. 11 videos of child sexual abuse. Does not say whether or not he was in it or he was only in possession. But he is also one of many who were caught in an undercover sting operation, including a high school teacher. But it's not front page news because it isn't a priest, but there were over 205 arrests.
Dang.
And Pam Bondi, this was a Pam Bondi operation. They're making sure that Patel and Pam Bondi were working on this. Even though, Pam Bondi, you got something else to do, haven't you?
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I'm going to put a caveat on. What if they're keeping the list secret because they don't want the arrest? Because because he is on this list, and so are some of the others that they're arresting.
Who's on the list?
We don't know. That's what I mean.
Well, I know, but the way that you said it made you were like speculating.
No, he's on a list of 205 arrested suspects, and I'm wondering if that's the list, where this list came from, and I can't find it. So I'm going to say, don't speculate if this is the Epstein list. Just say,
but who?
The editor.
The editor. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
The editor was on a list of 205 people arrested. This came down from Pam Bondi's office to Patel. This was a big sting operation.
Yeah. Okay.
This was put together initially by the Field Officers Child Exploitation Unit, which was the same unit handling. I think people are going to read too much into this. I think the Child Exploitation Unit probably knows, a little bit more than they're letting on. But I think they're not releasing all the list because there's probably, the usual thing, judges, suppression orders, deals being made. I mean, it's like the mafia trials. People were very excited at first when they had all these bosses, but when it came down to only 9 indictments and 3 cases were beaten, by the time it came to an end, people were just disappointed because they thought the mafia was this big thing.
Yeah. Well,
and I think they're Well, it is a big thing they kind of are on the revenue scale, but operational wise, it's a very small command unit in charge of all these, in charge of everything.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out where all the lightning and thunder and lightning I saw dealing with the chickens is. I look at the weather radar and there's nothing for 20 miles. But
yeah,
I can
we got
definitely
that
hear
going on
that
too. I think it's just the heat lightning.
I mean, we got on the other side of Boone, it's raining. On the other side of Iron Mountains, it's raining down towards Irwin, and it's raining toward Damascus, which is that's all the directions I could see. So I could see, and there was something toward Trade, and there's a small cell out that way. but I thought it would be a lot closer because I can definitely hear the thunder. But essentially east all the way around to southwest, and then it skips the south and goes southeast. So I'm like I got it all around me almost, but it's not close, and it's not supposed to be close till midnight. But anyway, I'm just saying that in case I go poof, you know that I lost power.
Yeah.
Because yeah, north of Damascus,
because lightning
huge,
is
man.
not. Yeah.
But that's going straight into West Virginia.
Yeah, because
It's not
storms
headed to
tend
you.
not to be convenient.
Yeah.
Storms tend to not be convenient, which is why California wants weather modification. But Florida has its way. Weather modification will be banned nationally. But so far, it's only banned in Florida.
Good.
Appalachia said that it's northeast of you.
Yeah, that would make sense. It was coming.
Yeah, it looks like it's northwest of Lynchburg. But yeah, Bedford, Glasgow, Lexington, getting hammered right now. It's all bright red. But there's nothing near you.
Gotcha. Oh, there's a bunch of lightning up here.
Yeah. Well, there's lightning to your southeast toward the lake. Westlake corner.
I was standing in a Walmart parking lot. It looked like it was coming from the north.
Yeah. Well, there is stuff to the north, but it's quite a ways.
Yeah.
Troutville, Buchanan. At least right now. Right? Wow. How long ago were you in the Walmart parking lot?
About, maybe 9 o'clock.
All right, I'm going to back this up. Yeah, 9 o'clock. Yeah, 9 o'clock. Big Cell to your, basically from east all the way up to north.
Gotcha.
There's a storm kind of going this way.
Oh, okay. Hey, last week I found a X account. He's called the Vigilant Fox, and he talks each day. Last week I brought him up, but each day he talks about 10 stories the media buries that they don't want you to know about. And I've been kind of reading his threads for the day, and it's pretty interesting. But number 10 was John Kennedy John Kennedy says anyone with basic law knowledge knows activist judges just made up universal injunctions to block President Trump's agenda. He writes, anybody who knows a law book from an LL Bean catalog knows that any federal judges just made up the concept of universal injunctions. If you disagree with the president or Congress, fill out a hurt feelings report, but you can't put their actions on hold because you don't like them.
Yeah, they have no judicial power over the judiciary does not have power of oversight.
Yeah.
It does. Okay, an injunction is meant to be direct action. You take out an injunction, that is a direct action that affects you, not a third party. You can't but the problem is feminism created this idea of the Jane Doe lawsuit. Okay?
Yeah.
The universal lawsuit was invented by feminists to sue on behalf of oppressed peoples. And so caught on with the cultural zeitgeist. But you're right, there are many stories buried every day that nobody can or will talk about because there ain't enough time. There's lots of stories out there every day. Some of them are consequential, like this one, for sure.
Yeah, I'm sharing out that we're live again.
But basic law, people should have been speaking out about this and probably have for a long time, saying that's not in the law books.
Yeah. All right. Number 9, MSNBC legal analyst hyperventilates over SCOTUS and nuking nationwide injunction. The Supreme Court's Republican justice took away the lower court's most powerful tool for remaining
because it ain't law.
Reigning in the Trump administration. She confirms what Senator Kennedy said. They just made up universal injunctions to block President Trump's agenda.
Yep. It ain't the law. You got no power in the Constitution that says, just because you're a judge, you can do anything. Yeah. Wait a minute. I thought people went to mother.
Well, and the district judges are creations of Congress anyway.
Yes. They're meant to be able to be fired, but they're not.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
They have too much protection from being fired.
Yeah, the Supreme Court is the co-equal part, not the lower court judge.
But again, it has to be a court case. It has to have the parties affected have to present their case. You can appoint a lawyer, but a lawyer can't appoint themselves and run a case against you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And the judge just can't make up a case. They have to be presented a case.
Gotcha. Number 8, New York City mayoral. I can't even say it. Mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani.
Yeah, he's a jihadist. Communist.
Yeah. Jihadi.
Goes on CNN to trash capitalism and push a socialist agenda. Aaron Burnett says, "Do you like capitalism?" Mandani says, "No, I have many critiques about capitalism. There must be a better distribution of wealth."
Oh, Saudi Arabia would say that.
What gets me are all the gays that voted for him, and he believes in throwing them off buildings. I mean, the guy is a jihadist, right? He's a chameleon, but on purpose. Yeah. This is how the London and they ended up with the Muslim mayor, and they can't get rid of him.
They're using the willful idiots.
They want to ban knives, but you make a hateful Facebook page, post, they're going to come after you and throw you in jail.
Yeah. But
and the people don't.
Christians and
the police show up to arrest somebody, and no one does anything.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't. You can't. I have free. You only have freedom of speech if you just stand up for it.
Yeah.
No, he's white. He's a migrant. He's one of us. Everybody can be British.
Have you seen that video where the lady's like screaming at the cop, like, "Hey, where are you taking him? Where are you taking him?" It's like, lady, it's none of your business. Be quiet before you're in the back of the next car.
It's called impeding a police. Is it? No, federal agent. Sorry, ICE.
Yeah, but when they're coming to arrest you for your Facebook post, unless you're calling for the death of somebody, the community should be standing up to the police. So that's the thing, is there's times to stand up, and there's someone who's a criminal, and you just happen to don't like they're here illegally or whatever. But yeah, some of it. Where do you draw that line?
Again, that's why I think we go back to all the way back to Socrates. If you have a position, it has to be universal, right? You either oppose or you don't. You don't. I think, like, you heard me talk about the Star Trek phenomenon, haven't you? How Star Trek has introduced the concept of having a set of rules, but those rules have rules and exemptions and exceptions, and even those exceptions and exclusions have ruls. Right?
Yeah. Hey, Ernie, what's up, man? How are you doing, buddy? I see you in the chat. Man, I need to hit you up, dude. I've heard some stuff. I've heard from a few people who are no longer employed at my former place of employment. But
all right.
Yeah.
So number 8, we did disrupt your list.
Yeah, it's fine. Number 7, CNN unexpected report saying markets are roaring back. Trump is set to preside over historic new heights. This segment comes after months of insisting that Trump's economic plan would tank the economy. We're on the verge of a major market milestone. Both the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ are on track for all-time highs. It must really have hurt them to have had to say that.
Must have really hurt CNN's because CNN will have a lot of people going, I wonder how Fox Business is doing today.
Right. All right. Number 6, Supreme Court sides with parents seeking opt-outs from LGBTQ books in schools. Yep. This was a second massive SCOTUS ruling of today. In a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of groups of parents in Montgomery County, Maryland, who wants to opt their kids out of classroom instruction using books with LGBTQ themes. Big win for parents' rights, religious freedom, and public education. Justice Samuel Alito wrote for the majority. In the absence of an injunction, the parents will continue to be put to a choice: either risk their child's exposure to burdensome instruction or pay substance sum for alternative educational services. As we have explained, the choice unconstitutionally burdens the parents' religious exercise.
Remember, atheists, you created this when you took religion out of schools. You used the same very argument. Freedom from religion, you argued, and they're arguing freedom from your religion.
Yep. Yeah.
Number 5, we've already talked about. It was the award-winning Washington Post editor arrested on cheese pizza charges.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Cheese pizza, CP. So we don't really need to dive back into that.
Nope. Moving on.
Number 4, MTG claims members of Congress are essentially forced to pledge loyalty to Israel. She told Tucker Carlson that lawmakers are expected to constantly declare that Israel is our greatest ally, and publicly show their support both on social media and in person. That's an interesting thought.
Yep.
Well, the ADL has controlled America's foreign policy since Obama, and probably likely a bit long before that. But remember, folks, I've always said it. There's a group of millionaires and billionaires who use Israel, and a lot of them aren't Israeli. They're Turkish and there's Saudi. Israel is the mask that these various groups around the world wear.
Yep.
And they use a corporation known as BlackRock. It used to be known as other names.
And they're too big to fail.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me how many right-wing nut jobs fall for the fake. They go on and on about the juice, and it's like they're just pawns.
Yeah.
They're not. Yeah. They're the face of people who don't want to be known.
Yep.
Yeah, and a lot of them aren't Jewish.
Yep. Here's all right. Number 3.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Okay. I just want to point out that a lot of these right-wing nut jobs have the same ideology as the left-wing nut jobs.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Right, really, the only difference between Nazism and socialism is spelling.
Yeah.
Nice.
When you get down to it, really. They goose step, they do, they're oppressive. When the boot's on your throat, it was in Thomas Sowell. It says, when the boot of tyranny is on your throat, it doesn't matter if it's a left or right boot.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Hey, number 3, NBC News reporter reports that gas prices are the best in 4 years under President Trump's leadership. So now this is the second story of the day where liberal media is eating their words because they've been pushing, 5-6 years?
$9 gas because we're going to be at war with everybody.
It's going to be so bad. It's terrible. Now they're
down.
discussing the differences. Gas prices dip ahead of holiday week, which everybody knows it's a great time to gouge gas prices.
Yes.
Yep.
1 year ago today, gas prices was $3.50. Today, gas prices are $3.21. So,
enormous. They're gonna dig up a sign somewhere. $2.99 gas in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Number 2 story is woman on food stamps is stunned to find out that she's no longer able to buy soda with taxpayer dollars. The RFK Jr. effect is kicking in. Everything else in her cart was approved, but the soda was declined because states can now restrict food stamps from covering sugary drinks. Watches her card just keeps saying decline. I can't believe this. Can't believe this, she says. Credit Wall Street apes.
That's the way it always should have been. Should be the essentials
Make
only.
America healthy again. Yep. No more marijuana either, I believe.
Eggs, meat, milk, bread. We could argue because a lot of bread is loaded with sugar.
But it's one of those hard things to categorize because you've got hundreds of brands.
Butter, cheese, bacon.
Yeah. People are freaking out that bacon's on the approved list. But there's more vitamins. There's more vitamins in bacon than most plants.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, look at what's in a steak sometime, and then how many vegetables you'd have to eat to get the same nutrition.
But the thing of it is, though, is if you look at, yes, bacon isn't the greatest meat for you, but the uncured. It's also the things that are on it that makes it just as bad.
The artificial nitrates and
yeah, you can get uncured bacon, and it's relatively not terrible for you.
Oh. Yeah. And then at that point, it's what was the animal eating before?
Yeah, right? I use turkey bacon.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? You go to a lot of these countries that don't have pork, and they got goat's meat. You know how worm-ridden goats are?
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet that's gross. Ooh.
Yeah. Well, the goats are actually more unclean than pigs. Trust me, I was a farmer. I grew up on a farm. Goats are more.
Were you really?
More
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, goats are more trouble. You got to always worm goats just as much as you got to worm pigs. Goats, you always got to hose them down because there's shit sticks to them, and goats are very unhealthy and unclean meat too. Because we had a local butcher come around, butcher animals and clean them. Yeah,
nice.
They gotta use a wash on goat meat. Otherwise you get what's called lymphatic meat. All the stuff that your lymphatic system sucks up with all your fatty tissue on the inside of an animal. If that's not properly cleaned out without any of its, you can't have any of it leak into the meat, and because if it gets stained, that's basically 200 times the amount of poison than you would just basically. You might as well grab a bottle of poison and drink it.
Nice. Hey, number one story for the day is the Congo and Rwanda leaders have signed a peace deal at the White House that was brokered by President Trump and Marco Rubio. We kind of touched on it a minute ago. This was an incredibly bloody conflict that has dragged on for decades. The violence has killed thousands in recent years alone, and displaced millions overall. But today, the peace president strikes again.
Yeah, but let's all focus on Ukraine,
Yep.
Yeah. And Ukraine's only a failure because of Zelensky and the European Union. And the European Union said tomorrow, hey, Zelensky, we're not going to give you money. He'll sign that peace deal. I guarantee you that he is not going. The Australian was named the latest astronaut, first Australian to become an official astronaut.
Apparently
Trump's on
there's
a roll.
A couple.
Trump's on a
there was
roll.
a couple
Every
bonus. There was a couple bonus stories that popped up on the bottom. One was Matt Gaetz was secretly recorded on a flight. Private text to his mom about Trump and Iran leaked. Just talks about.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I'm not sure what it doesn't. I mean, if you click on the link, it takes you to the page, and I don't feel like going through the whole article. Bonus number 2.
All right.
How the
Sorry, guys. I got 2 dogs whining at me that want to go out again.
Gotcha.
So I'll be right back.
How the medical industry profits off your pain and cheap alternative that actually works.
Yeah.
Bonus number 3 is instant regret hits Bernie Sanders' Joe Rogan interview backfires spectacularly.
Yeah. Joe Rogan asked him about I forget. Joe Rogan asked him about something, and Bernie went off on a tirade about capitalism. And Joe Rogan hit back about Democrats.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know that dude. That dude's crazy. He's not a genuine person. Everybody's like, oh, he's a good guy. He believes what he says. No, he doesn't. He says it from his 8 mansions.
Yeah. 3 lake. The man got a 3rd lake house after losing to Hillary. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. He got paid.
He got paid. Jaw-dropping footage of bunker busters have been released. If you want the link, it's not very much. It doesn't really show much.
Sure.
But
I'm going to share this list of 10 stories. I'm going to share that thread over on my X account. Anime Night, what's up, buddy?
Hey, buddy.
Sorry, my internet cracked when internet was down for a full hour.
Oh, dang.
Oh, damn, yeah. Trump basically said he saved the Iran's foreign leader from a very painful death, and he doesn't even say thank you. The Ayatollah was going to be assassinated. Trump called Bibi and said, no, you don't. And he doesn't even get a thank you from the ungrateful SOB. Yes, an ugly and ignominious death. And he doesn't say thank you, President Trump. Yeah. Instead, man, Trump, that's how big Trump is. Like, I would have definitely picked up the phone and said, Bibi, you know my earlier conversation. Make it slower.
Yeah. All right. So this article you have, I'm about to share screen. You sent it to me, David.
What's up? Video up the top. It's damn about the bunker buster. I think I hit the wrong one.
Is that not the right one?
Damn. No, the video's changed. Trump on the Iran plan. Damn it.
Gotcha.
Now I've got to find it again. When I was looking at that one, and I came up with the jaw-dropping footage of the bunker buster, but it changes video. So when you click it the first time, you'll get a video that says jaw-dropping footage of the bunker buster. That's the one. But it'll change on you if you don't play it with an ad. So you got to let the ad play, yeah.
Okay, let me go back and I'll reload it and see.
Yeah, it'll only show on the first time you load it. Otherwise, it goes to an ad. It's about a minute long.
All right, hold on. I think I got it.
Right.
Let's full screen, share screen. There's some audio.
See, it's not a very big explosion. And the scale things, but look at the explosion underneath. Oh! See, the initial detonator goes off, and it just keeps going like a...
Yeah, it's just pushing through.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Keep it going for a minute. You'll see inside the mission space.
And there's the secondary, and come to daddy.
Normal surface. You won't see
Look at that hole.
because they're designed to deeply bury and then function. I know there's been a lot of questions about that. All 6 weapons at each vent at Fordo went exactly where they were intended to go.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Like I said,
they should be thanking him. It's just a one and done, and on our way.
Yeah.
We came in. We're like, okay, this is our only warning. That's it.
Yeah.
Do with what you will, and we sit back and wait.
Yeah. And Mr. Ayatollah, you were almost fried bacon. By the way, your name seems Jewish.
Yeah.
One of my coworkers today played an old Beach Boys song called Barbara Ann.
Yes.
But there's a parody song called Bomb Iran. So I had to tell the two apart. I had to I'm like,
that's funny.
I'm like, what song are you playing? He's like, Barbara Ann by the Beach Boys. I'm like, oh, okay. Because if you play the two together, it almost sounds the same, which is so hilarious. And I'm like, why are you playing that now of all days?
But the thing is, Trump's on a roll. Every half hour, he is doing something different. Okay, he started this morning with Gaza. He got the Senate to back down on war powers. He hit out over Ayatollah's claims that America didn't bomb Iran. Yeah, right. Nuclear scientist has been killed, and another Iranian scientist has been killed. But so far, the peace deal is still holding. Now, it doesn't say where, but he was confirmed dead. And they don't say when, but he wasn't killed today. The media has basically backtracked their earlier story that a nuclear scientist has been killed. No, he's been confirmed dead amongst the 627 who were killed during Israel's bombing. Okay? A lot of people were freaking out over that. No, Israel did not attack Iran again. Otherwise, we'd be hearing a different story from Trump.
Yeah.
And there'd be definitely an F-bomb in it. The biggest bomb wasn't the one they dropped on Iran. It was Trump's F-bomb. Right before
that was
pretty
Europe. Funny.
Yeah. Trump is the gift that keeps on giving in all the right ways.
I'm pretty sure that
because he went in, he went in peacefully the one time, and then okay, we're gonna stop this. He told Zelensky, no, we're going, we're stopping.
We're not bombing her. No, we're not bombing Moscow. Zelensky, F off.
Yep, and then he went to the NATO summit, and it's like, you know what, you people suck. Take the L. Take the L and give us 5%.
Yeah,
give us 5%, and we'll consider not leaving.
Yeah,
even though I think we should still leave NATO and the UN and everything, because that's where we're really getting screwed at.
Yeah, but see, not leaving NATO and leaving the UN is, you
will we be?
We can't
David,
just leave NATO.
That.
The UN, that's another hard one too, because I think there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the UN that I think benefits US intelligence and saves a lot of time and hassle, where you got everybody in the room where you can just walk in and say, "Who's your daddy?" And there's not one.
That, but which would be harder to leave, NATO or the UN?
Oh, NATO. You're more entangled in Europe than NATO, than the UN. The UN you could drop like a hot potato and still basically take about a week.
So we'll just get out of NATO first and then slowly get out of the UN.
No, dude. I said you're more entangled in NATO than you are the UN. It'd take longer to get out of Europe than it would take the UN. We're talking years to pack up. You've got nuclear weapons over there, for Christ's sake. What are you going to do? They take time and money to dig back up out of the ground. Okay?
Oh, well, that's comforting. That's comforting. So if I walk outside, I'm bound to step on a nuclear weapon and then kablooey.
No.
Breaking news: nuclear weapon launched, accidentally blowing up in Arizona.
No, I thought it was. I'm
up there screaming at you guys like, "I told you so."
Yeah. Yeah, but again, I think one of the things about NATO is that it gives you cheap cover to Europe, and sooner or later you're going to have a war there to kick all the miscreants out. I think it's a trap. It was always a trap. Trump knows it's a trap, but he's preparing for that trap to be sprung. Okay, because it was created long before him. It's not something that he can unravel overnight. Okay, it's not like Africa where you can remove a dictator. It's a little harder. In Europe, people tend to get upset if, say, Macron slipped on a banana peel and, and the CIA put 3 in the back of his head.
Yeah.
Though he should, especially Zelensky.
Only slightly more difficult.
Yeah, only slightly more difficult, but still difficult.
And
the pain of put it this way: an African dictator could die, and the pain would last a week. Macron, there'd probably be a few years before France would speak to us again, and everybody go, "What? You speak? Oh, you were gone."
Exactly, and
still,
I watched both. I watched the speeches, and I compared Trump's speech with Zelensky. You could tell one's an actual leader, one's a puppet with its hand up its ass.
Which one, Zelensky or Keir Starmer?
Yeah.
Oh God, no, both of them are that. Both of them. Zelensky, he could barely be over the podium. He could be barely over it. They had to raise it a little higher just to give him a better complex.
I expect both of them to be leading a pride parade after they leave office.
Oh, God.
Probably together. Oh, Japan has carried out one of its rare executions.
Ooh.
He dismembered 9 victims. He was known as the Twitter killer. He hasn't been at home for 37 years. He's been wandering Japan killing. He was hanged at Tokyo Detention House.
Wow. 37 years. Jeez.
Yeah, he's never been home. Since he left home, he's been a killer. Yep.
What's the deal with Fetterman saying he's going to vote no on effort to restrict Trump's war power?
Ooh.
It was already shut down.
Here, listen to this. Hang on.
Oh, wow. Plainclothes Fetterman.
Resolution, which will come up tomorrow night. You can vote no.
Well, I'll say this. I love that man, and he's coming in from a very principled side. But I'm running, and I'm going to vote no on that, simply because I would never want to restrict any future president, Republican or Democrat, to do this kind of a military exercise that was very successful.
Oh my God, a sensible Democrat? When did this happen?
Yeah.
Hello?
How is he the most sensible Democrat? Again, this is like the...
Why is Fetterman becoming the more sane one of them? That's
because
scary.
He's starting to heal.
That's scaring me. Lape, Channel Dad, are we in the wrong time period? Where are we?
I
have expected. I bet the people are like, "You're supposed to follow the script. You're supposed to follow the script. You're supposed to hate Trump."
I thought strokes were supposed to turn people brain dead. Can we have somebody, please?
Yeah,
put a neurochip into. He's got a neurochip.
Well, no, somebody. I don't know. Somebody. People recover from that. People do recover. It takes time.
I know, but what's
but
the
it's
saying?
even his reasoning. You know, his reason is he doesn't want it to turn around when it's his team in charge and the Republicans doing tit for tat.
Yeah,
because it's outside of the bounds of the War Powers Act provided certain things that the president can do. If you want to rescind that act, takes an act of Congress, but not just use.
But the Senate can block an act of Congress.
Yeah,
but it's only temporary. That's
but
what
they're just
saying.
using parliamentary tricks, not the law.
Yeah, he's using he said a temporary block.
Yeah,
that's the part that people haven't latched onto. That's only a temporary block, okay? And then Fetterman's saying, well, if it's a temporary block, why do it? Because in the future, the same block will be applied to a Democrat.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I've never heard a Democrat actually think in public and act in public in a manner that is befitting the office of the Senate in a long time.
That's crazy.
But I'm ordering everybody who's a Democrat right now to go get a Fetterman lobotomy. Because obviously they cut out the crazy. I was in an Elon chip. Thank you, Elon. My money's on Elon. Now, most of the world news is sports, by the way. That's ridiculous. Obviously, they're covering up for something today. Something big happened.
Said sports.
Well, it could be because it's coming on to the weekend, but breaking news is rather quiet, which is weird. Most of it's about Trump rolling back tariffs, except for Canada. Foreigners are still being evacuated from Israel. So something's definitely up.
Y'all talking to me?
Oh, there was a shooting in Bali. Yeah. I'm just going through the morning. I'm just going through the morning world news that's breaking now.
Gotcha.
There's a huge fire in Iran. No explanation. Probably not. There's hundreds of foreigners trapped in Iran right now. And a lot of them have been evacuated to Israel. So that's probably why this is. But apparently, it's an oil. Apparently, the oil fire in Iran is still burning out of control. Chinese engineers have been brought in to assess the situation. Okay. But the tensions in Iran are building. There's been crackdowns, riots, looting, all the usual things that happen during war as soon as they have a ceasefire, all the mostly peaceful stuff. So, anybody got anything else? Because today's news is rather slow.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump's had some big wins, but
yeah, the media acknowledging his success is very refreshing.
Oh, another win. Remember the CBS editing scandal where they edited Kamala Harris? They finally admitted they did, and they're negotiating with Trump. They've upped their offer to $25 million to settle. Now, the problem isn't Trump. Trump has an injunction against taking the settlement from 60 Minutes, read by Leslie Stahl and the other bloke from 60 Minutes. Now, apparently, Sherry Redstone is looking for a legal option to have them either removed or to spin off CBS and break up the company now. But they're looking for a late filing to basically say, look, our employees are acting against our interests. Why can't we fire them?
Yeah, why MSNBC would look at what they're doing?
People can scuttle a $6 billion deal, get fired later, walk away and pick up a job elsewhere. But according to CNN, that's not true. CNN isn't hiring. They've fired 400 people. MSNBC, or whatever you want to call it, has fired hundreds of people. ABC hasn't hired people in years. They've also cut talent. So where does CBS think they're going to go? Or even just 60 Minutes? Because if they go to YouTube, that $27 million a year that Leslie Stahl gets paid, that wouldn't even be their ad revenue for 10 years. Okay? YouTube ad revenue is way down. Even Mr. Beast is now complaining the ad revenue is too low.
Yeah.
And he gets about $7 million a year. So there's no, could you imagine 60 Minutes trying to last on $7 million a year?
I know this man up here can last on $7 million a year.
Yeah, I know he wouldn't.
Yes, I can. Yes,
he would not turn it down. Look at that face. Does that look like an idiot?
David, we will have you over as soon as I get that $7 million. Everybody's coming to hang out. We're gonna have a good time.
Because it's a year, not.
You know how many cases of Natty Light that we could get?
I don't even drink anymore.
Oh, that stuff is so wild.
Folks.
Yeah.
All right, folks.
I gotta take off. I can leave it with Lape if you want, or
no, I'm headed to bed.
Nah,
okay.
Slow news week. There's nothing left.
Yep. Unfortunately, no coffee and gaming tomorrow. I've got some family stuff going on I got to take care of. So we should be back on schedule for next week. Next Friday night we'll be good to go. Buy David's book. Check out Lape's channel and check out Anime Night's channel. All their links can be found down below in the description. So thanks. Have a great night, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir.
Later, dudes.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Hell, I got to go.
Peace out.
Burn in hell, New World Order. Fuck you. Fuck you, New World Order. Fuck you, Bill Gates.
I love you.
You gotta do better than that.
I love you.